About 1 in 5 people who die from drowning each year are children 14 and younger. We'll tell you a simple way you can potentially save a life.
Ever heard the term melonhead? We'll find out why police were dropping fruit to educate the young.
I'm Tracy Minarchek.
And I'm Rick Current. Welcome to Lake Area Beat. We're out at beautiful Bel Air Beach, where we'll be talking about summer safety in this half hour.
So, any feedback on our show?
A little bit. Sea Shift, where my wife works, was not happy that I didn't mention them last time, so hello Sea Shift.
Well, if you're going to give a shout out, I'm going to shout out to Cub Foods and White Bear. Thank you for donating. They've been donating a lot of stuff lately.
Yes,
so.
Donut Day was
And they watch.
Donut Day was a huge success.
They watch the show too. So keep watching. White Bear Lake Police put on a bike rodeo last year, and we had such a good turnout, we did it again.
Officers used more than just words to demonstrate bike safety. Here's what went down.
On an event like this, we're not only teaching kids how to be safe and how to ride their bikes, we're really giving them permission to be outgoing, inquisitive, curious.
We have Regions that comes out and checks helmets to make sure that they're snug and they're fit properly so that if a kid falls, they don't hurt themselves. We've got bike tune-ups for the same reason, to make sure everybody's bike is working properly.
They got to pay attention to stop signs, they got to learn to signal. If there's obstacles, they have to learn to navigate those as well as control their bike. Inside here, this is a really slippery floor. And they're finding out very quickly that you have to do a little bit more than just steer your bike.
It's fun to see them go through the course and they learn stuff, and then they go through and they go at each station, and then they get a reward at the end. We just added the sprinkler course, the washing the bike. And even though it's raining outside, they're really enjoying going through the bike wash.
All these kids are paying attention. These are great kids. These are kids that want to be out here on a bike. These are parents who want their kids to be out here on a bike.
Our school district and our city have done a lot with bike safety, and if kids aren't safe on their bikes or if something happens to them, we get called for an accident, or we get called if there's something wrong or if somebody's hurt. So we would rather teach kind of prevention and safety on the front end.
All we can teach them with is how to live with what we have and how to be safe. That's what today's about, how to be safe.
They're just so excited to be here, and they're excited to show off their bikes and their helmets and have a good time.
I was not able to make the rodeo, but I heard you were there. How was it?
Yes, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people showed up. It was raining, but we did it indoors too, so that was nice. And I have a list here. Cub, Grandma's Bakery, Bike Minnesota, Jim Muehlner, Mike Brooks, Regions, Good Things, and Good Things Kids, I should say, and Create Space were all the local businesses that donated something, either their time or some product to the bike rodeo. So thanks to all of them.
Great, thank you. Many people need their coffee in the morning to begin the day. It's part of their routine. But you throw some cops into the mix, and this is what you get.
We're going to take a break, but as we celebrate our country's independence, Sergeant Betty has some reminders.
I'm Sergeant John Vetty. We're out at Memorial Beach where hundreds of people gather for an amazing fireworks display every year. And with fireworks season in full effect, there are a few reminders for your own fireworks fun. Children make up nearly half of all fireworks injuries in Minnesota. Fireworks that explode or shoot into the air are illegal. Legal fireworks include fountains, sparklers, ground spinners, and snappers. Although we just mentioned sparklers, they actually account for more than 30% of injuries and can reach 1,200 degrees, so be sure to supervise your kids. Make sure to point all fireworks away from people and animals. Extinguish all fireworks in a bucket of water and use them in an open area away from trees and houses. More information is available from the State Fire Marshal Division. Stay out of the ER this summer and stay safe during your summer celebrations. I'll see you next time.
Welcome back. 31 people died in non-boating related drownings in Minnesota last year.
Chris Foss is going to tell us how a simple skill could save someone's life this summer. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, let's talk about how can we prevent people from drowning in lakes, because that happens a lot, and this is a season where people are fishing and boating and having fun out in the water. How can we prevent it?
It is, and a lot of times, you know, it'll happen at a beach, something like this, with children. And the trouble with drowning is that it's a silent killer. You'd think that if someone is drowning, you'd have arms waving and shouting and screaming, but that's not actually what happens. Usually someone just quietly sinks below the water. So in a pool, it's easier to spot because the water is clear and you can see someone underneath. But when you're at a lake, you can't. So when you're out on the water, it's always best on a boat wear your flotation devices, and then when you're swimming at the beach, especially with kids, maybe have a buddy system where you're watching out for someone, and if you're in the water, they're in the water. If you take a bathroom break, they do too. And then adults, of course, pay attention and watch your kids, because minutes could go by and you might not notice because you're not going to hear anyone scream or make a lot of splashing when they go under.
That continual supervision is key.
It's
It
very
just takes
key.
a quick second.
Don't get caught up on your phone. Don't read a book. Watch your kids, because as those minutes tick by, their survivability is decreasing.
Well, and some kids like to swim underwater, and I know that's even bad when the water temperatures are high because of amoebas and stuff that can get in their sinuses. So if the water temperature is too warm and kids are going underwater, that's not a good thing. Keep your head above water. So it's kind of just a good rule in general then. Don't be swimming underwater, because sometimes when they get underwater, you don't know if they're playing around or if they're drowning, right?
Yeah, especially if they're under for a long time. And that's where buddies work really well. You know, if you go to the beach, your kid have a friend with them, and they're going to know because they're playing together if something happens to help you watch.
And now if something happens.
So if a person's drowning and they're found, pulled out, and a bystander can start CPR, tell us, how does that improve their chances of survival?
Well, every minute someone goes without having CPR, they lose 10% of their chance of viability. So after about 5 minutes, you may have a 50-50 chance of survival. But if you can do CPR, at least in White Bear since 2012, our witnessed VFib arrest, the type of arrest that you might have here, we have about a 54% survival rating of those calls. So it's really important to get that person out and begin pushing hard and fast on the center of the chest, because it's giving them a fighting chance. If you don't help, they will not survive. They are dying now.
And if somebody wants to learn CPR, our fire department, you have some classes, right?
I do. We have two more classes yet this fall, the end of August, and then later this fall as well, that you can get a certification. They're $60 for those, and you also get a book. But we'll also be at Market Fest every week doing hands-only CPR, and sometimes I'll bring the AED as well, so you can learn those skills. As you're coming to Market Fest, stop by 4th and Washington and, do a little compressions for 2-3 minutes and practice and feel comfortable with the skill, I'll be there, happy to teach you.
And if people don't know, Market Fest is every Thursday. So
every
Thursday you're
downtown White Bear Lake. Yeah, pretty much every Thursday.
All right. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Nearly 24 million Americans suffer from substance abuse. Chances are you know someone who does.
A family support network called Thrive recently began a local chapter in White Bear Lake, and they're hoping to develop a partnership with police.
My son was 12 when he started using, and of course, just like every parent, we just thought he was experimenting, cigarettes and, pot. And then at 13, we got a phone call from our school that he had showed up with a backpack full of pills. He was in 7th grade. And so, as you can imagine, that just rocked our world.
Like many parents dealing with addiction, Pam Lanhard had difficulty finding help when her son began using opioids 8 years ago, before the epidemic hit and before the stigma surrounding it began to subside, though she says it still exists.
I was told straight out by different people that it was a parenting problem. And I still see that occasionally on social media. Where are the parents? Why? Well, if you just parent correctly, your kids wouldn't turn out this way. So there's still a stigma.
It's what led her to start her own support network called Thrive, a nonprofit program providing hope, help, and healing for families dealing with substance abuse. They provide support groups, advocacy, and community education, focusing on the root causes of addiction, and they encourage loving well rather than tough love. Andrea Lemon, whose son suffers from addiction and mental health issues, began her journey 5 years ago, often feeling isolated and judged.
I see people that are struggling with family members that are dealing with cancer, other health issues. And the community comes around them and rallies for them. They're taking over hot dishes, they're taking over brownies to just support them. And when it comes to substance abuse, it's almost a shunning that happens. And I have lived this really alone in my community, and that's been difficult.
After researching social media sites, she liked what Pam was promoting, giving positive feedback during her most difficult days.
I've reached out to her, and she had shared that there were ongoing supports throughout the Twin Cities, family support groups, but nothing up in the Northeast Metro. So I reached out to her and I just said, have you ever considered starting a support group up in the Northeast Metro in the White Bear Lake area? And she said, I was just thinking about that.
The two met and connected through their mutual experiences, and Andrea helped facilitate the White Bear Lake chapter. They began holding weekly meetings last October. The group has continued to grow, reminding members they're not alone in their experience, and Pam is quick to remind the public addiction can happen to any family.
And my husband and I have been married for 36 years. We took our kids to church. We ate family dinners together 5 nights a week. We took our kids camping and did family vacations together. Our kids were involved in church and in sports. And so we really thought that we would be able to prevent addiction, knowing that there was a genetic component to it. We thought we could prevent that from hitting our family.
For more information, visit Thrive's website and Facebook page. Coming up after the break,
Humans aren't the only ones impacted by the summer sun. We'll find out how to protect our four-legged friends when we come back.
100 Miles, 100 Stories for me is an opportunity to help bring awareness to the violence and abuse that us in the medical field experience on a daily basis. I find that most people that aren't in the medical field are unaware of the things that we experience, and I want to bring awareness to that so that we can help prevent it in the future.
I'm a registered nurse that was assaulted in the emergency department, and I got a traumatic brain injury, which ended my nursing career way too early. And I am very blessed to be a part of this 100 Miles, 100 Stories so that we can bring awareness to the violence that happens in the nursing and healthcare field.
This hike is not going to be easy, but when people tend to suffer together, it brings them closer. And we need to make sure what happened to Julie doesn't happen to more healthcare workers in the future. So we hope you'll join us for 100 Miles, 100 Stories.
It's moving day for staff at White Bear Animal Hospital, but our favorite veterinarian, Dr. Stuart Dalton, made time to talk to us today about our pets. Thank you for stopping by.
Yes,
absolutely, my pleasure.
Especially today with everything going on and back at your...
It's a good excuse to get out of the craziness, so yeah, thank you for having me.
And it's important that we talk about it because we've had some excessive heat lately, and we've already, as police department, gotten calls about dogs locked in cars.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I've gotten this question several times, you know, how hot can it be or not be for me to leave my pet in the car in the summertime? And my flat answer is just don't. Let's not even pick a number because there's so many variables, your individual pet's heat tolerance, and we can talk more about that. In the shade, the windows, all those sorts of things. The bottom line is to play it safe and just don't. My own dog loves to go to the grocery with me. She loves to wait in the car, and we do it when it's cool, but she stays home in the summer. It's just the safe thing.
Are there any breeds, sizes, or anything that are more susceptible to heat?
So the dogs with short faces, brachycephalic breeds, things like pugs, boxers, bulldogs, they have genetically harder time cooling themselves and breathing, and so those higher heat environments can be especially dangerous. Heavy-coated dogs, you know, potentially going to have a harder time cooling themselves. So there definitely are a subset of dogs that have more problems, but in general, there's not a breed I would say your dog is fine being in a hot car. There is not such a breed.
Okay.
What about the tiny little dogs? People usually bring those everywhere.
Right, and
they do.
They tend to be very portable. They fit in purses and backpacks, and again, it's just not smart. It's just not wise. I think the public is becoming more aware of this problem. I think you're more likely to come back to a busted car window and the police being called out of safety for your pet, and I don't blame those citizens at all. I mean, that's the right thing to do. So the bottom line is leave them home where it's cool and they're safe.
Great. Do dogs sunburn?
They can in circumstances. There are certain areas like on the nose where sometimes dogs don't have sufficient pigment. They might have some pale areas. Those areas tend to sunburn. In general, it's not a big problem because most dogs' noses are darkly pigmented and it's more resistant. So in general, it's not a big problem. It's only on a few sort of rare cases where dogs have issues with the skin of their nose that we have to worry about that.
So it's actually the soft part tissue of the end of their nose, not necessarily on the top.
What we call the nasal plane, where the hairless skin around their nostrils. Mm-hmm.
And then what about, because I just took my dog for a walk and I made her walk on the grass instead of the pavement.
Smart. Yeah, pavement can get really hot, and their pads, although they're really tough, they absolutely can burn. And in a situation like that, they're probably going to burn all of their feet, and it's going to be really painful. So allowing them to walk on gravel or grass ideally, or walking in the cooler parts of the day, early morning, later in the evening when things have had a chance to cool down. But pavement, yeah, it can be dangerous. That black really holds a lot of heat.
Well, walking in the grass, weeds, fields, whatever, what's the best prevention against ticks and all that?
Ticks. We've had a lot of ticks too.
And really, ticks are only going to get worse. They're expanding their territory. It seems like we're finding new diseases all the time. The ticks that we really worry about for pets in this part of the country are the deer ticks, or what's also called black-legged ticks. So there's three things you need to do. One is just basically inspect your pet at the end of the day. Physically remove anything you find. Obviously, that should remind you to do the same thing for yourself, because if your dog's getting ticks, you're getting ticks too. Then there is good vaccination options. There's a couple different options on vaccination for dogs, but it's generally considered safe and can be really helpful in preventing the disease. Not perfect, there's no perfect vaccine, but it can make a huge difference. And I generally recommend that for the vast majority of my canine dog patients. There are certain exceptions. People say we really don't go places. Okay, we'll talk about it again next year. And then there are good prevention options, either chewable, topical, or there's some good collars. So there's those collars can help repel, but they also kill. And then the chewables and the topicals basically kill the tick before they have a chance to transmit the Lyme disease to your pet.
So that's what it does. It doesn't repel the tick from your dog, but it helps.
Right. The chewable and the topicals don't in most cases, as far as I know, don't claim to repel. Okay. So if you find a tick crawling around in your dog, it doesn't mean the product isn't working. It just hasn't had a chance to work, because the tick has to bite the dog to take the medication from the oil in the blood, and then they die within about 24 hours, hopefully before disease goes from the tick to the dog. Okay. So examination, removal, vaccination, and some sort of preventative.
Yep, I've been finding a lot of my dog's tails. It seems they love to catch on right there when they're going through the weeds.
Probably, you know, the way ticks, they hang out on vegetation and they have 8 legs like spiders, and they're just waiting for something warm and fuzzy to walk by. So a tail is a perfect opportunity to catch a ride.
Now we're running out of time, but we've got 4th of July and we've got some thunderstorms, and some dogs do not like either.
Thunderstorms and fireworks, they're similar. Thunderstorms are somewhat more multi-sensory because of the flashing and the light and the thunder and the rain. There's a lot of things that can come. The fireworks are primarily the sound. As far as managing that, there are medication options. There are other things. There are products called thunder shirts that are soft compressive wraps that can comfort some dogs. There are nutritional supplements, plant-based products that might be helpful. You know, there's also management. Do you play background noise? Do you try to drown things out? So you tend to have to really tailor a program. There's nothing that works for every single dog. It's a real challenge, but it's something we talk about a lot, and we definitely want to address, because it's not just your dog being silly and goofy. They're basically having a panic attack. It affects their quality of life, and they're suffering in those circumstances. So it's important not to ignore it and really ask us for help.
Okay. And if they ask you for help, you're in a new building.
The
move is going well, and you're almost done with the move, right?
So today is day 2 of the move. We're hoping to be open for appointments tomorrow. It's a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces. I've got a lot of good help. My staff's been great. We're really excited about the space. We're moving from 3 to 7 exam rooms. We're going to have much more dedicated cat-only space. We're going to have expanded dentistry space. And the new facility will allow us to apply for certain certifications, national certifications, that weren't possible where we were before. So we really feel like the new building is a better reflection of the level of service we're trying to provide for our clients and our patients in the community. We're really excited. We're really proud of it.
Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it,
thank you.
especially on a busy day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been a great distraction from the chaos, so I'm happy to be here anytime.
Appreciate it.
As many of you know, White Bear Lake Dispatch has moved to Ramsey County, but fortunately, we're keeping some of our longtime dispatchers who've moved into new roles.
During her last days of work, producer Mary Klein and photographer Brian Henshin sat down with dispatcher Angie Stewart, who talked about her past and contemplated the future.
It takes a special person to be a dispatcher. You deal with people's worst moments in their life, and you are just a voice, but a lot of times you're that voice until somebody else gets there.
White Bear Lake dispatcher Angie Stewart worked in banking for 16 years before getting a job with the White Bear Lake DMV.
I feel so special.
After taking the Citizen Police Academy, she fell in love with law enforcement and became a reserve, quickly advancing to captain in just 2 years, eventually becoming a dispatcher in 2000.
The first 3 months I was here in training, I thought, what did I get myself into? But I ended up loving it. And I love my officers, and I like to make their jobs easier. And yeah, it's going to be sad to see it go.
It wasn't a surprise to Stewart or her fellow dispatchers when the council voted last year to move dispatch to the county.
You literally have to take every single call to make sure that...
She'll continue to work for the city, though not in the same capacity, but says she'll find ways to still make a difference.
You know, I'm going to find ways in my new job to continue to help. Whether it's helping find a lost dog or a lost child, or getting information out there through social media, or whatever I can do to continue to help. And that's what I'm going to do. Just won't be on the same level.
Stewart says the officers have become a second family to her.
I like to do that to the rookies.
How'd you scare him?
I told him that the chief wanted to see him.
Oh, you're such a brat.
And though losing a job you love is never easy, she says she'll always be grateful.
I never expected that what this job would turn into. And I'm proud of myself for that. I am. I love that. It's why I come to work every day. Because I'm proud of that. Yeah. And I get a little teary somewhere.
So last month we saw Wendy's story, now Angie's, and next month we'll feature Naomi. We want to extend a big thank you to all of them for everything that they've done and for being on the show to tell their story.
Yes, appreciate their time.
Yes.
If someone comments on something you've posted to Facebook or something that's posted on Lake Area Beats Facebook page, do you read it? Are you happy someone's taking the time to reach out?
Yes.
Well, me too. Folks, we love to hear from you. Find us on Facebook, like us, and let us know what you like, your favorite stories, and what you've liked to see more of.
I love reading what people have to say, so please be our friend and please be kind.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Lake Area Beat. And like your local mail carrier, we're out here rain, sleet, snow, or shine. I'm Rick Current.
And I'm Tracy Menarchek. We'll see you next time, hopefully in the sun.
Even my kids say, you know, they'll call and say, oh, you don't even want to talk, Mom. I said, I've been talking all day. And they eventually, I mean, they get it. I mean, they're in their 30s now, so they get it. They understand it. But when my granddaughter calls, then everything stops and I've got all the time in the world for her.
Boom! Okay, one more and then the promo, and we just got a short one here, short wrap up.
You really can't see all this rain.
We're out here, rain, sleet. Oh my God.
I like where you're going with it.
I know.
As it's pouring on us.
That's hot.
Humans aren't the only ones impacted by the summer. Sun, sorry.
My makeup's running.
3, 2, 1.
This July, we'll focus on keeping your summer fun safe and injury-free. That goes for your pets too.
We'll show you an easy way to potentially save a life. Or to turn, I can't, if you're locally. I'm just tripping. I can't see.